What is going on, everybody? Today I want to give you 3 tips that'll help you maximize your current business right now without adding any more lead sources or activities. Everybody, Cole Harvey with Lifetime Realty Group. Now, before I get into all of that, if you guys are liking our content, if you're appreciating what we're doing here on the channel, please smash that subscribe button, hit that like bell, and leave us a comment below, and be sure to catch our content here on the channel every single week. I want to give you guys 3 tips that you guys can apply to your businesses right now to maximize your revenue and maximize your transaction count without adding any new habits or activities or even lead sources. Tip number 1, and you've heard this before, but this is really, really important. The first thing you guys can do to maximize your current business is to start tracking what you're doing. Now, you guys have heard us talk about tracking a million times, but this is why it's super important. If you want to know if you're getting the most out of your current strategies, if you guys are maximizing the listing opportunities and transaction opportunities, you never will know unless you're paying attention to and tracking everything you're doing. So you've heard me talk before on this channel about the real estate algorithm and how that works with our business. And what that means is no matter what we're trying to achieve, if you're trying to sell more units or acquire more clients or grow your database or increase your sphere or just meet more buyers, you have to know what activities lead to that outcome. So how many conversations do you have to get an appointment? How many appointments do you have to go on to get a client? How many appointments do you have to go on to get a listing? All of these things have a trackable kind of algorithm that you can schedule and plan your day-to-day business based on. So if we know that, for example, maybe you have to make 200 phone calls to have 10 conversations, and you have to have 10 conversations to book 1 appointment, and you want to do 2 appointments, then you have to have 400 conversations or 400 phone calls and 20 conversations. So we don't know this unless we track it. If you guys can get in the habit of tracking everything, the number of conversations and text messages and emails and reach outs and appointments you book and doors you knock, and if you can track all of that stuff, patterns reveal themselves very, very quickly, and you can pivot and double down on what's working and what's going to deliver results and discard what's not working. So having the understanding through tracking is step number 1 to really, really increasing the current business that you guys have. Okay, so following that is tip number 2, and that's that I want you to start thinking and being very, very conscious of your conversion rates. This is the natural second step to tracking, right? When I talk about conversion rates, in sales, we're thinking about how many acquaintances become clients. How many referrals do we get per client? How many contracts do we get per appointment conducted? So you have to know these numbers by tracking so that you can then improve and level up your skills in any of those spaces in your business. And so the first thing I would suggest is, how many appointments do you go on to get a contract? So if you're a listing agent who's trying to generate more listings, how many listing appointments do you go on per signed listing agreement? Maybe you go on 3 or 4 appointments for every 1 listing you get. And so if you want to get 2 listings in a month, you have to go on 8 appointments, for example, because you've been tracking it. So knowing those numbers, you can see where you have to improve skills within your existing business. If you find that you go on a lot of appointments, but you don't really get any deals out of them, then you know you have to level up your presentation skills. You have to improve the presentation you're giving, maybe work on your presentation packet or your delivery. Maybe every time you get an appointment, you always get a deal, which is awesome. And it's like, man, it's like every interview I go on, I get hired, and that's awesome. But maybe you're not getting enough at-bats, and so then you need to work on your conversion of conversations to appointments. Maybe you need to work on your closing skills, or you need to improve how often you're asking for that appointment and ensuring that it's going down. So if you're the kind of agent who gets every appointment they go on, that's rad. You just need to be able to double down on your appointment booking process. And if you're struggling in converting the appointments you get, you need to double down or level up your listing presentation or your buyer's presentation. But either way, you don't know unless you're intentional. So step number 1 is tracking. And once you have the understanding through your tracking, then step number 2 to leveling up your business is to focus on that conversion ratio and your individual skill in converting those deals. Okay, and now tip number 3, one thing every single one of us can do to make a huge impact on our business and make it grow in our existing business is to really systematize and go all in on being excellent in our follow-up. So I had a conversation the other day with an agent who, I get that conversation, the question all the time, right? Like, how many times should I call this person before I give up? Or, yeah, I met someone at an open house and it was awesome. We really hit it off. We had a really nice conversation, but now I've called them a couple times and they're not answering. The answer is that you probably need to follow up way more than you already are. Now, we all have like an internal kind of comfort level with that because, these are new relationships, or we want to have great relationships with our clients. We don't want to scare people off. We don't want to act too desperate. We don't want to be too salesy by calling them too much. And I totally appreciate that. But one thing I can promise you, and it's one of the few things I can promise, but this is 100% true, is that you will never ever lose anyone because you followed up too much. We only lose people because we don't follow up enough. So you need to have a system and make sure you're crushing your follow-up. And so what that means is you should probably follow up with everyone forever until they have a deal, whether it's with you or someone else. So if you're the type of agent who's pursuing listings, you need to follow up with those potential sellers forever until they list with you or with someone else. But you have to have a system for it, but just be very clear on it. Follow up with them on the right intervals. Use your CRM to make sure you're hitting them in the right kind of time period, but never ever give up on the follow-up. On the other hand, if you're working with buyers, you would be surprised. Sometimes we think that just because they're not picking up the phone, they don't want to talk to us or they don't care about working with us, and that's almost always not the case. You can have an amazing first impression with a potential buyer client you might meet at an open house or out in the field. And just because you're calling them over and over again and they're not picking up the phone, that doesn't mean they're not seeing your call and going like, oh man, he's calling me again. I got to make sure I talk to him. I promised him I would. So don't ever assume that they don't want to talk to us just because they're not picking up the phone. Their life is just as busy as yours. You give up way too easy if we don't get an immediate response. So tip number 3 is to really be excellent in your follow-up because you're leaving all kinds of opportunities on the table. So to recap, the 3 things you can do: track everything, focus on leveling up your conversion ratio in every aspect of what you're working on, and then maximize your follow-up excellence. Just doing those 3 things will make a humongous impact in the business you already have. Before you add a new strategy or a new lead source or try the latest and greatest thing you saw online or whatever you think is going to get you business right now, you want to make sure you're getting the most out of what you're doing already. And I guarantee you, if you take the time to look at these 3 things, we probably have room to improve in all 3 areas. So maximize and be excellent at what you already have, and make sure you're getting as much out of your business as possible before you add anything new, right? So follow that, try those things, and I guarantee you guys will have more opportunities, more deals, and make more money, and your business will grow. Okay, so there you have it. And again, if you like what you're seeing here on the channel, if you're appreciating our content, please hit the subscribe button, smash that like bell, and leave us a comment below if there is anything else we can help you with or anything specific you would like us to address here on the channel. With that, I wish you guys all a ton of luck and an awesome selling season. Let's level up every day.